The banquet hall on planet Zorath was full of alien lords. Their armor shone under the blue lights, their strange eyes watching the humans standing alone in the middle. The air was heavy with smoke and laughter. They didn't like humans. They saw them as weak creatures from a small world, not worth much in the vast galaxy. At the head table, the alien Baron sat, his armor black as night, his long cape spread behind him like wings. He ruled over 5 planets, his word law across the sector. His daughter, pale and silent, sat next to him in a hover chair. She couldn't move her legs, her face calm but distant, her silver eyes full of something no one cared to see. The Baron raised his cup. "A gift," he said loudly, his voice echoing across the hall. "A gift for the human." The lords laughed. The human, dressed in simple clothes, looked around, unsure what the joke was. The Baron stood, towering over everyone. "You came to work in my lands. You came seeking food and shelter. You came with nothing, so I give you this." He pointed at his daughter. "My paralyzed child." Gasps filled the hall, followed by cruel laughter. "She can't walk, she can't fight, she can't speak much," the Baron said, smiling coldly. "She is of no use to me. But maybe a human like you will take pity on her." The girl looked down at the table, her silver hair falling over her face. The human didn't speak. He felt the weight of every alien eye on him, waiting for him to refuse to show shame. This was the Baron's joke. A cruel game. The man stepped forward, slowly, quietly. He looked at the girl, not at the Baron. She looked so small in that chair, so fragile under the bright lights. "I will take her," he said softly. The laughter stopped. The Baron raised his brow. "What? I will take her," the man repeated. "She will come with me." The hall fell silent. The Baron smirked. "You accept?" "Yes." More laughter followed, loud and mocking this time. "Take her then," the Baron said with a wave of his hand. "Let the human deal with dead weight." 2 alien guards brought the girl forward. She didn't look up, didn't speak, only sat in her hover chair as they pushed her toward him. The human placed his hand on the chair's handle. "Come," he said softly. For the first time the girl looked at him. Really looked at him. There was no fear in her eyes, only curiosity. The man turned and began to leave the hall, the girl's chair moving with him. Behind them, the aliens laughed, the Baron laughed. The whole hall echoing with the sound of mockery, but the human didn't care. Outside, the air was cold. The twin moons of Zorath hung in the sky. The human walked down the stone steps, the girl silent behind him. He reached the small transport ship waiting for him. As he helped her inside, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "Why?" she asked. The man paused. "Why what?" "Why take me?" The man looked at her, really looked at her. Pale face, silver eyes, hair like frozen light. "Because," he said simply, "no one deserves to be left behind." She stared at him, as if trying to understand. The ship's engine roared to life. As they flew into the night, the girl kept glancing at him. She didn't know this man. Didn't know why he had taken her. But for the first time in her life, someone had chosen her. Far behind, in the Baron's hall, the laughter slowly died. The alien Baron drank deeply, thinking this was the end of a useless burden. He didn't know it was only the beginning, because the girl he had given away as a joke carried a secret even she didn't know, and the human who had accepted her had just changed the fate of worlds. The transport ship cut through the dark sky of Zorath, leaving the Baron's palace far behind. Inside, the man sat quietly in the pilot's seat, while the alien girl remained in her hover chair at the back. The engines hummed softly, but between them, there was only silence. She kept looking at him when she thought he wasn't watching. He didn't speak much either. He just flew the ship with steady hands, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. The girl had never left the Baron's fortress before. She had lived her entire life surrounded by walls, servants, and whispers, to be given away like a broken object. She didn't know what to feel. The man finally spoke. "Do you have a name?" She hesitated. "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra," he repeated softly. "I'm Kale." She nodded but said nothing more. When they landed on a small farming planet called Ares, Kale helped her off the ship. His home wasn't big, just a small house made of stone and wood, with fields stretching behind it. There were no servants. Here, no armored guards, no palace walls. Only wind, soil, and quiet nights under open skies. Lyra looked around slowly. It was so different from the Baron's hall, from the cold corridors she had known all her life. Here, the air smelled of rain and growing crops. Kale carried her inside, setting her hover chair near the warm fireplace. "You must be hungry," he said. She didn't answer, only watched as he cooked a simple meal. No royal chefs, no silver dishes, just bread, stew, and clean water. He placed the food near her. "Eat." Lyra hesitated, then took a small bite. For a long time neither spoke. The fire cracked softly, shadows dancing on the walls. Finally Kale said, "I know why the—" Baron laughed. Lyra froze. "He thought I would see you as a burden," Kale continued calmly. "But I don't." Lyra looked at him sharply. "Why not?" Kale's eyes met hers. "Because you're not." No one had ever spoken to her like that before. In the palace, she had been the silent shadow of the Baron's house, the crippled daughter, the weak one, the disappointment. People pitied her, or mocked her, or ignored her. But this man, he simply treated her like a person. The days passed. Kale worked in the fields while Lyra watched from her chair. He would bring her books, tell her stories about the stars, about other worlds he had seen. She began to talk more soft words at first, then longer sentences. One evening, a storm came. Lightning split the skies, rain drumming on the roof. Lyra sat by the window, watching the storm with wide eyes. "You're not afraid?" Kale asked. She shook her head. "I like the sky when it's angry. It feels alive." Kale smiled faintly. But that night, something happened. As the storm raged, the wind blew open the door. Kale rushed to close it, but when he turned back he froze. Lyra was standing, not perfectly. Her legs trembled, her hands gripping the table for support. But she was on her feet. "Lyra," Kale whispered. She looked down at her shaking legs, eyes wide with shock. I don't know how." Lightning flashed outside. For a moment, Kale thought he saw a faint glow around her hands, like silver threads of light. But when he blinked, it was gone. She collapsed back into the chair, breathing hard. Kale knelt beside her. "It's okay," he said softly. "We'll figure this out." Lyra's mind was spinning. All her life, she had been told she was weak, broken, cursed. But tonight, she had stood, and deep inside, something was changing. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was only the beginning. Far away, on the Baron's world, rumors had already begun. Strange whispers about the girl given to the human, about lights in the storm, about power awakening where there should be none. The Baron laughed when he heard it. "Nonsense," he said. "She was born broken." But his advisors exchanged worried looks, because in the galaxy's oldest legends, there was a story about a child of silver eyes who would rise when the stars called her name, and that child had just taken her first step. The storm had passed, leaving the air fresh and cold over the low farm on planet Ares. The sky was still dark, the ground wet with rainwater, and the smell of earth rose from the fields like a living thing. Inside the small stone house, Lyra sat quietly in her hover chair near the fire. Her silver eyes followed Kale as he moved around the room, drying things, fixing the door, putting things back in their place after the wild night. But her thoughts weren't on the room, they were on her legs. She remembered the moment clearly, the thunder, the wind, the strange feeling rushing through her body like fire and ice mixed together. For a few heartbeats, she had stood. Really stood. It didn't feel like normal strength. It felt alive. Cale noticed she was silent, staring at her hands. You okay? He asked softly. Lyra hesitated. Something's changing, she whispered. Cale stopped what he was doing. What do you mean? Lyra shook her head slowly. I don't know. Last night, when I stood up, I felt something inside me, like the storm wasn't outside. It was here. She touched her chest lightly. Cale came closer, crouching in front of her. Do you feel it now? Lyra looked down at her trembling hands. A little. Cale studied her for a moment, then said carefully, maybe it wasn't just the storm. She frowned. What else could it be? Cale didn't answer, because deep inside, he already had a feeling this was no simple accident. The next day, strange things began happening. It started small. Birds landed on the windowsill when Lyra was near, as if waiting for her. Wild animals from the nearby woods came close to the fields but didn't harm the crops. Even the wind seemed to blow differently when she sat outside. Cale noticed it all. One evening, as the sun set in red and gold colors, Lyra sat under a tree watching the sky. A little creature, like a glowing fox, came near her chair. It didn't run when she reached out her hand. Instead, it rubbed against her fingers like it had known her forever. Cale watched from a distance, his face unreadable. There was something happening here. Something far bigger than the Baron's cruel joke. That night, while Lyra slept, Cale walked outside, looking at the stars. He had traveled many planets, met many strange people, heard countless old stories in markets and outposts. And one of those stories came back to him now. A legend about a child born with silver eyes, who would carry the voice of the stars inside her. About how the galaxies themselves would answer when she called. Cale looked back at the little house, where Lyra slept peacefully. Could it be her? Meanwhile, on the Baron's planet, rumors spread faster than fire. Did you hear? The girl walks. Now, they say animals follow her. No, they say the ground itself glows when she touches it. The Baron laughed when his spies told him. Fool's tales, he said, drinking his dark wine. She was born broken. A human farmer can't change that. But one of his oldest advisors, a thin alien with pale green skin, didn't laugh. My lord, he said carefully, the old prophecies speak of a silver-eyed heir. Power born from weakness. You gave her away. But perhaps the stars did not forget her. The Baron slammed his cup down, anger flashing in his eyes. Enough with old songs and prophecies. She is nothing. But deep inside, even the Meren felt a chill. Back on Eris, Lyra's changes grew stronger. One morning, Cale found her outside before sunrise, her chair near the edge of the field. Lyra? He asked softly, what are you doing out here? She didn't turn. Her silver eyes were locked on the horizon. I can hear them, she said quietly. Cale frowned. Hear what? The stars, she whispered. They call my name. Cale's stomach tightened. The prophecy. The rumors. The way nature itself seemed to bend toward her. It was all real. And he knew then, whatever lived inside this girl was powerful enough to shake entire worlds. And sooner or later, the galaxy would come for her. The first spy came at night. Cale saw him before Lyra did. A shadow moving through the tall grass, careful, quiet, but not quiet enough. Cale had lived on the edge of too many worlds not to recognize the way someone moved when they didn't want to be seen. He waited until the shadow came closer, then stepped out from behind the barn with his old rifle raised. Stop, Cale said. Calmly. The figure froze. Under the pale moonlight. The spy's alien face was thin and sharp, his cloak wet with dew. He didn't reach for a weapon. Instead, he raised his empty hand slowly. I mean no harm, the spy said in a low voice. I came only to see the girl. Kale's grip tightened. Why? The spy's eyes flicked toward the house where Lyra slept. Because the galaxy talks, human. It whispers about silver eyes and a storm child who walks again. Kale's stomach turned cold. The rumors had reached even this far. She's just a girl, Kale said flatly. The spy shook his head. No, she is something more. The Baron may have thrown her away, but others will come. Not all of them kind. Before Kale could ask more, the spy melted back into the grass, gone as quickly as he had appeared. The next morning, Lyra noticed Kale was quieter than usual. Something happened, she said softly, watching him sharpen tools near the fireplace. Kale looked at her. She had changed so much in just days. The shy, silent girl he brought from the Baron's hall now spoke with calm strength. And her silver eyes, they seemed brighter. He told her about the spy. Lyra didn't look surprised. They're afraid, she said simply. Of what? Kale asked. Of me, she whispered far away on the Baron's planet. Fear was indeed spreading. Merchants brought strange reports. Farmers spoke of lights in the sky over Aris, of winds that carried voices, of wild creatures gathering near one small house like soldiers obeying a silent command. The Baron slammed his fist on the table when he heard it. Enough, he roared. She is broken. She is nothing. But his advisor, the old green-skinned alien, looked uneasy. My lord, he said slowly, the prophecy speaks clearly. Born in silence, crowned in storm. The silver child will rise when stars call her name. The Baron glared at him. You think she will rise against me, my own blood? The advisor hesitated. Not just against you. Perhaps against all who mock the weak. The Baron stood abruptly. Then we will crush this before it grows. Send soldiers. Quietly, if the girl is changing, I want her brought back. Back on Aris, Lyra felt it before Kale did. She was sitting under the tree near the field when the wind shifted. It wasn't the soft, playful wind she had come to love. This was sharp, heavy, like a warning. They're coming, she murmured. Kale, carrying firewood, stopped. Who? Lyra. Look toward the sky. The ones who fear me. Kale felt a chill. That night, as the twin moons rose, Kale stayed awake, his rifle near the door. Lyra sat by the fire, silent, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Why do they want you? Kale asked finally. Lyra didn't answer at first. Then she said softly, because they know what I'm becoming. Kale turned to her. And what is that? She looked into the flames. Something they can't control. Miles away, hidden in the dark hills, alien soldiers watch the little house. The Baron wants her alive, their leader whispered. But if she resists, kill the human. None of them noticed the soft glow spreading through the fields, as if the land itself was waking at the girl's presence. Inside, Kale felt the floor tremble slightly. He looked at Lyra. Her eyes were close now. The wind outside began to howl, stronger, faster, circling the house like a living thing. Kale's heart pounded. Lyra, what are you doing? Her voice was barely a whisper. Listening, she said. The stars are speaking again. And in the darkness, the soldiers felt the first real fear crawl down their spines, because the earth itself seemed to be waiting for her command. The attack came before dawn. The alien soldiers moved like shadows through the fields, their armor dull black, their weapons silent. The Baron had sent his best hunters, expecting an easy capture. One crippled girl, one human farmer. That was all. But the night itself felt wrong. As they neared the small house, the wind rose, low and heavy, like the growl of something waking from a long sleep. The leader raised his hand. Quiet, he whispered. We take the girl alive. Kill the man if he fights. They crept closer. Inside the house, Kale was already awake. He had felt it, the change in the air, the unnatural stillness before the wind began. He grabbed his old rifle and moved to the door. "Lyra," he said softly, "stay back." But Lyra was not afraid. She sat in her chair near the fire, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark room. "They're here," she said simply. Cale looked at her. "How do you know?" Lyra tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something far away. "Because the ground told me." Before Cale could speak, the door burst open. The soldiers poured in, weapons raised. "Stay down." One barked. Cale fired first, the crack of his rifle loud in the small room. One soldier fell, armor sparking. But more came, surrounding him, knocking the weapon from his hands. Lyra didn't move. She just watched them with calm, unblinking eyes. The leader stepped forward. "Take the girl," he ordered. Two soldiers grabbed her chair. That was when the lights began. At first, it was only a soft glow from under Lyra's skin, like moonlight trapped inside her. Then it grew brighter, spreading through her hands, her hair, her eyes, until the whole room was filled with silver light. The soldiers froze. "What is this?" One whispered. Lyra stood. For the first time she rose to her feet without help. Her legs no longer shook. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but carried like thunder. "Leave." The soldiers stepped back despite themselves. Then the wind hit. It roared through the house like a living thing, tearing weapons from their hands, shattering windows, slamming doors shut. The ground itself shook, cracking beneath their boots. Cale shielded his eyes from the blinding light. "Lyra!" he shouted. "Stop!" But she didn't stop. The soldiers tried to run. Roots burst from the ground outside, tangling around their legs, pulling them down. Their armor sparked as if the earth itself rejected them. One by one, they dropped their weapons and fled into the night, stumbling through the fields, too terrified to look back. When it was over, the wind died. The light faded. Lyra stood in the center of the room, breathing slowly, her silver eyes still glowing faintly. Cale stared at her. "Lyra, what are you?" he whispered. She turned to him, her face calm. "I don't know," she said softly. "But I think the galaxy does." Far away, in his palace, the Baron sat on his throne when the surviving soldiers returned. They knelt before him, shaking. "Where is the girl?" The Baron demanded. The leader raised his head, eyes wide with fear. "My lord, she is no girl anymore. She commands the earth itself." The Baron laughed sharply. "Fool's tales again." But the leader threw down his broken weapon. "We saw it with our own eyes. The wind obeyed her. The ground fought for her. We could not stand against her." For the first time, the Baron felt a cold weight settle in his chest. The old advisor stepped forward from the shadows. "My lord," he said slowly, "the prophecy has begun." The Baron turned on him. "She is my blood. Mine, she will return to me." The advisor shook his head. "No, my lord, she will rise against all who mocked her, even you." The Baron's hands curled into fists. "Then I will burn that world to ash," he growled, "before she takes what is mine." But deep inside, a voice he couldn't silence whispered the truth. The girl he had thrown away as a joke would be his undoing. The night after the soldiers fled, the little house on Aris stood silent under the twin moons. Cale sat by the window, his rifle across his lap, though he knew no weapon he owned could have stopped what happened earlier. He kept replaying it in his mind. Lyra glowing like living silver, the wind roaring like a beast, the ground itself fighting to protect her. She hadn't just defended herself. She had commanded the planet, and she hadn't even looked afraid. Behind him, Lyra sat in her chair, eyes closed. She wasn't sleeping. Cale had learned she hardly ever did anymore. Her face was calm, but her hands glowed faintly, like starlight lived under her skin now. Finally Cale spoke. "You're changing." Lyra opened her eyes slowly. "No," she said softly. "I'm remembering." Cale frowned. "Remembering what?" Lyra looked toward the sky through the window. Who I am. The next morning, they found the field outside the house transformed. Where the soldiers had run, the earth was split in long cracks. Strange flowers glowed softly along the edges, blooming overnight in colors Cale had never seen: silver, blue, gold, like drops of liquid light. Lyra stood among them, her bare feet on the soil. She didn't use the chair anymore. She didn't need it. She placed her hand on one of the glowing flowers. The light spread under her fingers like the plant knew her, like the whole field was alive because of her. Cale watched in silence. I can feel them, Lyra said quietly. The roots, the stones, even the rivers far away. They all speak now. Cale shook his head slowly. This isn't normal power, Lyra. This is something else. She turned to him. It's not power, she said. It's a call. The stars are calling through me. And the galaxy will hear it soon. And the galaxy did hear. On distant worlds, traders told stories of a silver-eyed girl who commanded storms and Earth itself. Refugees claimed to have seen soldiers flee from her like children running from a fire. The Council of Nine Systems held a secret meeting. If this is true, one alien lord said nervously, she could topple governments. She is one girl, another sneered. One girl who commands planets, the first replied sharply. Do you want to wait until she commands armies? No one had an answer. Back in his palace, the Baron heard every rumor, every story, every whisper. With each report, his anger grew. But so did his fear. She was nothing. He shouted, smashing a glass against the wall. I gave her away. She was crippled. The old advisor stood calmly near the throne. And now she rises, my lord. The prophecy spoke true. You tried to bury her, but the stars do not forget their own. The Baron glared at him. She is my blood, my child. I will chain her before she brings war to my door. The advisor shook his head slowly. Perhaps it is already too late. On a Reese, Lyra walked the fields at night now, her silver hair glowing faintly under the moons. Cale followed her once, keeping his distance. She knelt near the cracked earth, pressing her hands to the soil. The ground pulsed with soft light under her touch, spreading in lines across the field like veins of silver fire. Cale finally asked, What are you doing? Listening, Lyra said. The planets are waking. They were waiting for me. For you? Cale frowned. Lyra looked at him, her eyes brighter than the moons above. The galaxy forgot my name, she whispered. But the stars didn't. They carried it in their silence, waiting for the day I would rise again. Her voice changed, then soft, but filled with something that made Cale's chest tighten. And now, she said, the stars are calling others too. Others? Lyra stood slowly, the wind swirling around her as if obeying. I am not the only one. Far away, in the dark halls of the Baron's palace, a messenger arrived trembling. My lord, he said, falling to his knees. Whole villages are joining her. Farmers, hunters, traders. They call her the Starborn. The Baron rose slowly from his throne. The Starborn, he repeated, his voice low and cold. He turned toward the window, staring out at the burning suns beyond. She was supposed to be nothing, he whispered to himself. But deep inside, he knew the truth now. He hadn't given away a crippled girl. He had unleashed a queen. The sky over Aris burned gold and silver as dawn rose, but the little planet did not wake in peace. From the hills came the sound of engines loud, heavy, and angry. The Baron's army had come at last. Hundreds of soldiers marched behind armored carriers, banners snapping in the wind. Above them, dark ships floated like metal vultures. Blocking out the rising sun. At their head rode the Baron himself, his black armor shining, his face hard as stone. This ends today, he growled, but even he felt it, the strange weight in the air, the silent power rolling across the fields like thunder before a storm. In the small farmhouse, Cale stood at the window, watching the army spread across the horizon. They've come for you, he said quietly. Behind him, Lyra stood in the doorway, no longer the pale, fragile girl he had met weeks ago. She didn't use the chair anymore. Her silver eyes glowed faintly, even in daylight, her long hair lifting slightly as if the wind followed her steps. She looked out at the army and said softly, "They think I'm alone." Cale turned to her. "You're not." Lyra met his eyes, and for the first time she smiled. The Baron rode forward on his black war beast, stopping halfway across the field. "Daughter," his voice rolled like iron, "you will return to me now. You will kneel before your father and your Baron." The wind answered first. It rose around Lyra, pulling at her hair, her clothes, lifting dust from the ground. The soldiers shifted uneasily, weapons tight in their hands. Lyra stepped forward. She didn't shout. Her voice was calm, clear, carrying across the field like music. "I am not yours," she said. The Baron's face darkened. "You are my blood. My heir, you will obey." Lyra raised her hands slowly. The earth itself moved. The fields cracked open in glowing lines. Trees bent as if bowing. The air filled with light, a silver storm swirling above her. When she spoke again, her voice was no longer just hers. It carried the echo of something far older, far greater. "I was born from stars," she said, "and the stars do not kneel." The army broke first. Weapons dropped as roots burst from the ground, wrapping around soldiers' legs and dragging them down. The wind tore banners to shreds. Ships in the sky spun out of control as storms ripped through the clouds. The Baron roared orders. But even his own war beast panicked, throwing him to the ground. He stumbled to his feet, his armor cracking under falling debris. "Stop this," he screamed. "You are my child." Lyra walked toward him through the chaos, untouched by the storm. "I was your joke," she said softly, standing before him. "The cripple you cast aside." The Baron tried to raise his weapon, but the ground swallowed it whole. For the first time in his life, fear filled his eyes. Lyra leaned closer, and now, she whispered, "The galaxy will remember me and forget you." The storm rose like a living wall. The Baron vanished inside it. When the winds cleared, only broken armor remained where he had stood. Silence fell over the battlefield. The soldiers dropped to their knees, not in chains but in surrender. Above them, the silver storm slowly faded. The sun broke through the clouds, casting light over cracked earth, now blooming with strange, glowing flowers. Lyra stood at the center, calm and quiet, the power settling around her like a crown. Cale came to her side. "It's over," he said softly. Lyra shook her head. "No, it's beginning." She looked at the soldiers, the farmers, the merchants gathering at the edges of the field. All had seen what happened. All had witnessed the fall of the Baron and the rise of the Starburn. She raised her hand, and the people rose with her. No one cheered. It was too big for cheering. Too sacred. The galaxy had changed forever, and they all knew it. That night, Cale stood outside the farmhouse, looking at the sky. Ships from distant worlds were already landing, envoys, leaders, even rebels. They came not for war, but to stand before the girl who had risen from nothing. Lyra stepped out beside him. "You started this," she said softly. Cale shook his head. "I only gave you a home." Lyra looked up at the stars, her silver eyes shining. "And I will give them a future." The wind stirred again, gentle this time, carrying the promise of a new age, the age of the Starburn.